Got it.
Hello everyone, Jola Pypno-Crapanzano here, and with my very first episode of brand new show, Yola PC TV. I am so excited because today I'd like to introduce you to a guest from Australia with love, from down under, Beverley Holt. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I couldn't believe it. I planned to start my actual series in 2023. And again, divine destiny happened and we are here together today. Welcome, Beverly. I am so excited. I want to share with the viewers that I could do now all bios and introductions and tell you all these amazing things about Beverly, but I think that if I ask her, and if I ask her in a very nice way to tell us if she had only 2, 3 minutes to tell people about her something that will become unforgettable, that will stay with them forever, what would that be? Beverly, how would you like people, what would you like people to know about you? And then I let you do a proper intro, but this is something that just came to mind.
Wow, thank you, Yola. And that's a very, very interesting question. And so 2 or 3 minutes. What I would like people to know about myself is that I've been through many life challenges. I've experienced lots of death from a young age. And I also cured my own cancer. I had cancer on my thyroid and cancer on each of my ovaries. And when the doctors told me about it and wanted to rush me into hospital for surgery, chemo, and radiation, I said, no, I need to get my head around this. I'm going to the British Lions tour next week in New Zealand. I was living in Australia and I need to sort it out. I'd been losing loads of weight and seeing holistic therapists, nobody could tell me. And to be honest, it felt like a relief. And when I came back, I'd had so much fun, love, and laughter. I didn't have any symptoms of the cancer at all. So I've been a Reiki master. My mother was clairvoyant. I have that gift as well. And what I'd like to say to people, if I can heal myself, you can as well. Just trust that you step into your power. When we come to this planet and we pass through a veil of forgetfulness and we forget that we are divine being, and we spend our life searching from the naught, from the beginning of conception to 5. We develop all these disempowering beliefs, and then we spend the rest of our lives trying to prove that they're wrong. So it could be lack or scarcity, I'm not good enough, and so forth. So my goal is to help people to live from their heart, not comparing, not judging, to come from forgiveness. Because when you see the God in someone else, the beauty, the perfection, you give them the opportunity to see that perfection in themselves. So that is my mission, because this is the way we'll bring love into our planet and change our world.
Wow, what a story, what a message. And isn't it so much more powerful than if I just took a list and told you that Beverly was born, da da da, and she lived and she traveled and she did. I love this because you see, I truly believe that if we can from the heart give people the best we have inside, and your story is magical, your story is pure amazingness and manifestation at its highest level. That's why I think we both got attracted to each other. I had a pleasure and honor to have a session with you. Remember when you gave me some ideas about, and I will never forget it, about lapis lazuli for the throat and all this stuff, right? When we talked about this, and it was just so powerful. And I actually, from that time, started myself learning about crystals and healing and all this stuff. I'm just so fascinated. And the stuff that you're able to do, the channeling, and then the body healing thyself, is simple magic. So now that we have your message out there and the hope for so many people that it is possible for them to trust and know that even though things may not look the way they want right now, it's possible to turn them around. So, will you perhaps give us a little bit more like an insight into you? When how this all happened? You said mom was clairvoyant. How were you growing up? Give us a little bit of backstory about it. How did you find out that you have special skills and talents and magic in you?
Thank you. I grew up in humble backgrounds, and I was one of 6 children. It was actually 8, but 2 died, one at birth, a twin of my sister, and another sister had died. And my mother knew that it wasn't right. There was an epidemic of whooping cough, and she didn't want to take it to the doctors, my sister, but because as she grew up, doctors were gods, and my father insisted that she take the baby to the doctors, and she said no. And her deceased sister had come to her and said, we're taking baby Diana with us tonight. So she knew that that was farewell. And how did I know? Because I felt initially, and I know a lot of children do, that I was born in to the wrong parents. And it was like, what am I doing here? Why am I here? And too much noise and too many people, because I was the second youngest at that stage of 5, and I had one more sister. And it was my mother, because I went to school. I didn't want to go to school. And the teachers I was always coming top of the class, and they say I didn't know how because I was always daydreaming. And now I know it was because I would be going on my astral travels and different things. And I never connected with anybody in my class, really. And couldn't wait to be in nature. There was a stream by the house, so I'd always end up playing in the stream. And my mother, because she didn't want people to think I was crazy, she told me keep it a secret, when I could share. And I had a little doll, a black-colored doll, and we called her Annabelle. And that was my imaginary friend that I was talking to, like a spiritual friend, and talking to spirits. And then it just increased. And when I started with psychiatric nursing, I got Dr. Chowdhury, an Indian doctor, to speak to my mum and I. And he did it to pacify me, to interview us, to make sure that we weren't insane, because I was listening to clients talking about speaking to God and the angels. And I thought, oh my goodness, my mother and I must be crazy as well. So I blocked it for a long time, because when my grandmother died, and she'd said to me, because I'd had a fallout with my father, he said, 2 men meet before 2 mountains. And she came to me that night. I was on my way traveling around the world, and I got as far as America, and I got the call. And I just knew she had done this so I could go back and patch up my meeting with my arrangements with my father. But I would see things all the time before they happen, and people come in. They were coming to me as young as 6, 7, 8. People would tell me all their problems, and I knew the answers. And as I started getting a bit older, I knew the answers before people even told me. And years ago, we'd have Tupperware parties, the good old Tupperware parties. And the night before, I might have a vision and know what everybody was going to say, what they were wearing, how they dress. And yeah, some of it was scary. And then it wasn't until I started my Reiki experience that my Reiki master really helped me to channel the energy and save it, because she gave me that reassurance that I didn't have to be like taking on information about everybody around the clock. I could decide when I wanted to receive the information and channel it at leisure. Well, when I thought. So I always ask my angels now, should I give the message or not when I do a healing?
That's
and I keep it
incredible.
under the hat that way.
That's incredible. I am so fascinated by it. And I again have to say, I mentioned this to you before this interview, that I opened myself to everything you talk about just a little while ago on the scheme of my life. It's only last couple of years. And I think that because I did open myself to the possibility that there is so much more outside of what we think is that masculine, having got it, do be, there is so much more we have no control over, and that it's just, if we can like let go and let these energies and the universal laws and these magic things that you're able to channel, when I realized that that's possible, things opened up for me so much wider. And I think that, again, there was a reason we met a few years ago. I want to tell listeners, we met in a most incredible way. Again, we are far apart on two other parts of the world, across the globe, pretty much. We met because we share a publisher, Mira Tarka. We wrote different books, but because of her, we met and we did a little small collaboration. And I'm just so grateful that after that I was able to speak with you about your work a little bit, but I wanted always to have this opportunity to share your work with my audience because it's incredible. So tell us a little bit about this, because everyone out there would love to know how to heal thyself, right? Without there are a lot of people, again, who think that only Western medicine is what matters. All this woo-woo stuff, all these unconventional methods are craziness and whatnot, and yet there are countless, unlimited proofs that we can heal ourselves in ways that are way more, how should I use the word? I don't want to use a word that wouldn't be appropriate. There are very effective ways of healing through unconventional methods. Let's just leave it at that. Can you tell us a little bit about your case? How were you able to do that? Because a lot of women will want to hear that.
Yeah. When all this happened, I'm actually on a different level now, but because I don't think any of us need healing, because we are divine beings living in a human body. And it's only our disempowering beliefs when we engage in those stories. We have a choice to deal with pain and suffering, or we can step into our true God self. So, as I mentioned briefly, I believe that we choose our parents and we come through a veil of forgetfulness. So we forget that we are a divine being. And when we're in the womb, we can hear all the conversations, and that's when our education starts. So I knew my mother only wanted boys. That was her craving. And of course, she had 5 girls and 1 boy, and she just lost her boy before I was born, and she was hemorrhaging a lot, and the doctor said no more children. But because she'd had that taste, oh my goodness, that's a boy. So I didn't really want to be born when I was in the womb, and listening to that. So I got forceps delivery, and I didn't want that disappointment. But with people who are listening, whatever illness, I'm not saying what you're going through is not real, because when we're living from our disempowering beliefs, everything we experience is in that reality. But if you realize that you can heal your thoughts or choose to step out of your disempowering thoughts, usually your illness will disappear. And with me, I'd been having lots of alternative therapies. And like a lot of the listeners, I grew up with a medical background and a very religious background. There was all ministers of churches on either side. My father didn't want me to be a psychiatric nurse because he thought I would be crazy like the inmates. And from the religious side of you, it's not accepted, and everybody thought it was woo-woo, and he thought I was getting involved with some sort of witchcraft or a cult and so forth, because I started my studies in Australia and they were living in Wales. And a friend of mine wanted me to study Reiki for many years. She's a nurse consultant. And I just didn't, I was like, oh no, oh no. And my belief system was I have to be perfect and I have to be in control. And I didn't want to do anything that wasn't in my upbringing and that was a bit unknown to me, and our ego is always searching for the known. Even if it's a life and death experience, the ego will always go to the known. So for me to be introduced to energy work, it was like, oh no, 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 no. So my father and mother were completely different. My mother kept it quiet about everything and she kept hers under the belt. She just didn't want people to know, but she would confide in me with a lot of things, and she would tell me how it felt in her body or the messages, how she would hear them, but she couldn't tell it to other people because they'd have her locked up thinking she was insane. But for the listeners, so I didn't want it, but I was actually being stalked. My ex-partner at the time was very jealous and possessive, and I'd only just moved in with him and mobile phones had come out, and he encouraged me. He gave me this phone to call all my friends and clients, and so he had everybody's number. And when I got home one day, he had called all my clients, whether they're male or female, and accused them of having sex with me. So to me, that was the icing on top of the cake. He was jealous of my parents, my family, just wanted to see all the interactions. So I said, right, that's it. I'm leaving. It's too much, because he'd just been too much with the jealous possessiveness. And I went to the lift, and within seconds, he grabbed me. And before I knew it, he was strangling me. And he had his hands so tightly, and he's a massive man. I was raised off the floor about this much. And he had me in a way that I couldn't move my arms. I was pinned against the lift wall. And I was praying to God, and I was begging him, pleading him with my eyes, please let me go, please let me live, please let me live. And finally dropped me and said, get out of my sight, I don't want to see you. And I could hardly, I was gagging for breath. It was so painful. I crawled into the lift, I managed to stagger up the wall and press the button again, crawled in. And I made my way home to my own apartment, which was being renovated. And I've got a policeman neighbour, and he's like, right, let's take a statement. But having worked in a prison as a nurse, I didn't want to go through all that drama. But he eventually said it's to help others that come behind you, And reluctantly, I went and had a Reiki healing when my nurse friend knew about it. But the story is very long, but the universe made sure I had this appointment, and I didn't believe in it, didn't think it worked. And then I flew because he was still stalking me, trying to find me. I was going from pillar to post with friends, and he was still finding me. So I just got a flight back to Wales. And in Wales at the time, there was no such thing. Massage therapy was only new. Reiki and alternative therapies would have definitely been a woo-woo. And a friend came to visit because I'd had a big sty on my eye. And I went to a doctor, and he tried to do it surgically. He gave me alternatives to bathe it, etc. But the thing got bigger and bigger, and then the other eye got infected. And it's only later I realized I was fearing for my life. And yes, my ex was trying to kill me. So, I was fearing for my life and my future. And that's why I'd gone to the surgeon, and then there was a load of dramas, and then I ended up having the Reiki. So someone came to visit, and they said, where did you have the operation, in Australia or here? And I was like, what operation? The sty was so big, I couldn't even notice that my eye was open because I'd been so stressed. It was like, I looked in the mirror and it's like, oh my God, it's gone. you know. And then it was like, oh, I can see out of my eye. Oh my God. So we went for a walk and we came past a natural shop where they sell organic products. And I seen a sign, Reiki within. So we were both like, oh my goodness. So I went inside the shop and I talked to the guy and he said, oh yeah, my teacher owns the shop. She's actually in Australia at the moment. She's a psychologist and she's gone to Australia to teach Reiki. And he said, but I am a master. And if you want one, I'm not sure if you'd be able to get there. And he told me where he lived. And it was less than 2-minute walk from my sister's house where I was staying. So I was like, I can go there. So I had Reiki with him, and he was actually clairvoyant as well. And he gave me messages about my ex and his son. And it was like, oh my goodness. And unlike the first one, I thought the man he had his hands over my eyes. I thought he was going to fall and hit my head and make it worse. With this one, I was just totally open and willing for it. And so that night I slept very well, my first time in about 4 or 5 months. And I woke up, and now I know it was an awakening. And I could see beauty in everything. The colors looked amazing. And I could smell my food again. I could taste my food. And I just had such a great appreciation for life and for love. And in my heart, I remembered my ex's background and how he was in the war and all these terrible things that happened to his parents in concentration camps and, with the Jews, etc. And I just was full of forgiveness for him. My heart was full of forgiveness. And when I forgave him, it was like a big weight off my shoulders. And then I just had this burning desire to call my friend and go back to Australia and do my Reiki training. And Reiki has been part of my everyday life ever since. It's all about, I take it much deeper than the training, but I combine a few things, but it's all about giving gratitude every day. I bless my food. I bless my body. I give thanks for everything. I give thanks for the breath that I'm breathing. And every breath is a gift. And each breath connects me with the universe. And I feel this divine love, and I feel the divine love filling every cell and atom in my body. And I now listen to my messages, and I am writing a book on divine love that I'm channeling with God, because the world is changing. The world has changed, and there's many great people spreading the word, like Dr. Joe Dispenza, Robin Sharman, Eckhart Tolle, Muji, and there's dozens and dozens of people spreading the word. But now I'm channeling, because we really have to change the way that we're living. We have to go back to the roots, our origin, how it started. Everybody was full of love and respect for one another and lived in peace and harmony. And people loved who they were, and they loved life, and they enjoyed life, and they appreciated everything in life, and they were connected to all that is, connected to nature, and nature's our best teacher and healer. And this is the way forward. Yes, we can still have digital things in our life, but we will be moving forward with going back to our roots, going back to our origin, going back to love and feeling love and seeing the love in each other. For years, I've been honoring the love in everybody I speak to. As soon as I speak to them, I'm seeing the love, the divine love, because people always say to me, oh, Beverley, you always see the good in everyone. And it's because, yes, we're all one, and if I see the good in someone, it gives them the opportunity to see the good in themselves. So no matter what person has done what we call sin or bad or whatever label you put to it, that's coming from their disempowering beliefs. But if I can help them to shine and see that love, then fingers crossed they can change their way. And I know, Jola, you are helping people on a beautiful journey as well, to see the love and light inside them and to be the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you for inviting me on the spur of the moment to be your first guest
I am
in an
honest.
instant. And so we can share this divine message of love. And what a wonderful way to close 2022 and bring forth this divine energy
Yes.
into
Yes.
2023.
Yes. I almost felt that when you were talking right now, you were channeling it, exactly the message you wanted to. Look, this wasn't planned. Like I said, it was absolutely on the verge of total coincidence almost, and yet it came out beautifully. I got three messages from what you just said. Number one, gratitude, right? Without gratitude, we feel like we lost. And yet, if everyone could daily write five things they are grateful for, and they do it definitely in the morning or in the evening every single day, the small or big thing they're grateful for, guess what's going to happen? Then more and more of these things they're grateful for will show up in their life. Number two, love. Will always be the light that will, defeat the darkness and the shadow and all that stuff and the evil. So the two things. And the third thing is what you talk about, just living, and how you were able to turn this very difficult time of abuse, of being, even physically hurt, and come across an amount of coincidences and synchronicities that happened, brought you to where you are right now, this amazing healer and a person who can help other people. So it was all necessary, right? All these things were necessary to bring you where you are right now. And I would love to ask you one more question. Where is Beverly right now? What is your what you're working on? What would you, because I know that you wrote a book, collaboration book, a Lady X, but what are you on right now? What is this that you're planning to give to the world? What's your message these days?
Yeah, the message is to connect with nature and become nature. If you can't be in nature, bring a plant, a flower into your house and just look at that flower and become that flower. You are an extension of that flower. And as you give all your love to this flower, you also give that flower the opportunity to remember, yes, I am a flower, but I'm also God and part of God and divine love and divine creation. And in return, that flower will give you so much love back.
Can I stop you just for 1 second? Hold that thought, because it's so important here. Guys, for all of you who are listening to it and thinking right now, she is on another level, she is on another plane, I don't relate to this. Please just try to listen what she's saying. If you cannot understand how divine this message is, if you have a next opportunity, go outside and walk on the morning grass when the dewdrops are still on it, and feel it. Feel how you connect it. Until this happens, and until you actually can hear the birds, hear them, not just have them in the background, but hear them, appreciate the beautiful flower. Those are the moments that just few years ago, they were unavailable for me. So I am so grateful that you brought it up, and I interrupted, but it was important for people to hear, the ones that thinking it's sort of a woo-woo, because I believed a lot of things were woo, and now I truly believe we can go from woo-woo to wow. And there's actually one of the chapters in my book about it, like this. And thank you so much for sharing that. So continue. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Yes. No, well, that's because I'll make this simple for people who are not on the same pathway yet as myself, because I know everyone, because collectively as one, we will all move together in a unified life to love and happiness. But we're all connected through breath. This is one thing we all have in common. We all breathe the energy. You can think, I like to think that I'm breathing in divine love. But regardless of that, on a physical level, we're breathing in air, and the air is sustaining every cell and atom in our body and keeping our physical body alive. And without air, we will be dead. So a majority of the population at the moment, you know, you are a coach and you know the importance of coaches. My message is to everyone is to learn how to breathe properly, because most people are dysfunctionally breathing. We're mouth breathing. We get stressed and we're breathing in and out through our mouth. We shallow breathe in our chest. So it's important to go back to the basics of our physiology and learn how to, with our mouth closed, breathe in love and breathe out love, or just breathe in air and still your mind. Because in this stillness, when if you can focus on your breath, you will still your thoughts, even if it's only for one breath. If you focus on the temperature of the air as you breathe in, just here, breathing in the air, going into your nostril, through your nose, and then some of you might feel it at the back of your throat, or you might feel it in your chest as it rises, or your tummy as it rises. And then just notice as you breathe out, you know, maybe your ribs have risen and they come in and you feel it coming out. And the temperature as it comes out your nose might be warmer than when it come out. But on a physical level as well, the other reason why you should breathe in through your nose and keep your mouth closed is when we breathe in 20% more oxygen, and the air is filtered by the cilia in the nose. It is pressurized. We stimulate the production of nitric oxide, which opens up our capillaries and takes in more oxygen, and it sends it down into our trachea, into our alveoli. And if we do a deep breath, it goes into the lower 2/3 of our lungs. This is where the air gases are exchanged. And our diaphragm, which is just underneath our ribs, the bottom of our ribs, here, this is an important part of our breathing apparatus. So as we breathe in, if our tummy rises slowly, it activates our diaphragm. So a lot of people think carbon dioxide is a myth, but it is actually vital for the exchange of, or I should say the release. It binds with the hemoglobin in the blood, and it's like the key that will open up the cell and release the oxygen into the bloodstream, the oxygen that we need to have in our brain to keep our brain alert and active and to nourish every cell and atom. So we need to have a good sitting posture and a standing posture. So most of us are on computers and crouch forward. And when we crouch forward, we're trapping our diaphragm and we can't breathe properly. And when we sit straight, imagine a string coming from the center of our head up. We're elongating our spine, we're elongating the space between our belly button and our sternum, and we can roll our shoulders back so we're open, you know, for a good posture. And it also allows us to relax a bit because our shoulders are up here and we're relaxed. Yeah. But this is necessary. And if we're sitting, I tell people, lift one cheek of your bottom, lift the other cheek of your bottom, suck the belly button into the spine. And this is good to do every hour. Yeah. If you're mouth breathing, you're shallow breathing and you're more prone to infections. Yeah. you not having the air filtered. It's not sterilized by the nitric oxide. And that's why kids especially get tonsillitis and adenoids, and people who talk a lot, like I know you're going on speaking, public speaking,
It's all from
they also, we talk a lot, so it's important to rest in between and do a bit of breathing. But going back to, once you master functional breathing, when you follow the air in and follow it around your body, you're calming your thoughts. Yep. If you do 2 breaths, your thoughts relax a bit more. Do 3 conscious breaths, you're still in your mind. And before you know it, if you could do 1 minute a day, follow in, and then 2 minutes, up to 5 minutes, you are going to be in a space of stillness. And in this stillness is the magic that I'm talking about, where you can allow space for your creative ideas to come through, and use your imagination. And this is the space that I call bliss and oneness. And this is a simple thing, just 1 breath at a time.
Beautiful, beautiful. This is exactly the essence of my mental fitness program. Quieting the brain, the monkey thoughts that are constantly going in our head, by breathing, focusing on one physical sensation at a time, even just for a minute or 2, helps us to, like you said, boost creativity and imagination and all these amazingnesses. So this is so great. And I loved the fact that you brought it up, because in this pre-holiday hustle bustle, people are going crazy. And imagine if they just follow this one piece that you were talking, and if they just did the 3-4 minutes of breathing, then I immediately felt that peace and immediately followed by joy, right? Because when we can connect to that stillness of not worrying about what happened and what may happen, if we're in the moment of which we know for sure it's now, if we're in that moment, we can actually reach that closest to happiness moment, right? Which is actually we're in charge of. But I really am grateful you brought it up. And my last question for you, Beverley, is you mentioned before we had this conversation on air that you are working or are planning on creating a very special book. You're in the process of writing it. Can you tell us about this and finish it up with how people can learn about you, and if they wanted to maybe get your service of either reading or some energy healing, how could they learn about you?
Yeah. While I'm writing this book, but I'm going through different challenging times with my in-laws who are not physically well at the moment. But I've had a strong message to write a book just about what I've said, to give people a message on how we all, not just me and you and light workers, it's about every single person on the planet needs to change their way of being, their way of living, and live in the moment. They need to come from a place of love and respect to the origins. The first people, the first civilization on the planet, they lived from this space of love and respect for yourself, for others, for humanity, for animals, for insects, to absolutely everything, to the plants, and giving gratitude for everything. And I will have powerful messages for people how to do this in baby steps. And because when we first came here 2 years ago to Australia from France, we were coming to see our in-laws and also escape the high numbers of COVID and the several lockdowns in France. And at the time, it was virtually non-existent in Australia. And then since then, we've hit lots of lockdowns. We ended up, through my intuition, we bought a van and converted it into a camper van. And for about 10 years, I've been having the idea to live 6 months in Australia in the summer and 6 months in France and have a retreat in both places. So we are looking for land. And now, through my desire for this book, or the strong nudge to write this book, I'm having the message to create a heart-based school, heart-based way of living, and even for children to come there so that they can learn about astronomy and the stars and the planets and how we connect. They can learn about nature, because most children, there's been so many surveys over the years. Where does milk come from? The fridge. Where does cheese, this, that, everything, it all comes from the fridge or the supermarket. So it's to get them to know the basics and to touch. And I've had, Nassim Haramein's astronomer who works for him with resonance science, she's even offered, when I was chatting with her, oh, if you get land and you're doing a school, I'm happy to teach the adults and the children about the stars and how we were formed and how stars are formed and about humanity. And, they've since started doing programs. And I didn't even ask her. People are volunteering to be part of this journey with me because they know that it's so needed. And maybe it will start as a retreat, and then other people will come along and the school will happen. But we don't need a physical school to be in nature. People can learn from nature. And also my journey in my camper van, we've started spending a lot of time in nature and choosing, because we have an app, we know where the phone towers are. And sometimes we choose not to have any connection with the world and just be one and look at the stars and be by the rivers and be with nature. And I've taken so many photographs, and now I'm getting a message to do a journal with photographs and put a photograph in, and then write messages of my thoughts and feelings and how people can cope with challenges in their life. You might think, it's the summer, the beginning of summer, and all weekend has been really bad storms and winds and rain, and we've had lightning storms last week. Everything. I actually love seeing lightning and the storms. I just find it so peaceful and magical. And at that time we'd had a lot of hot air, but then the temperature changed and everything was so lovely. But even we compare everything to life. If you look at that storm, we've all been through a big storm the last 2 years. But there's always an opportunity. There's always a gift to look within and say, okay, this is happening. What is the best thing for me to do right now? Maybe the universe is directing us to do something different. Maybe we couldn't go out and listen to carols in the domain, but maybe I'm meant to stay at home and be with my friend. My 86-year-old friend who's been traveling. There's always a reason. And the friend that I'm staying with is 86, and he's absolutely amazing. My partner and I are staying with him. And he's just such a great teacher. He grew up in an orphanage, and he is a self-made multimillionaire. But he loves where he's living. He takes everything with gratitude. He's so greatly appreciated. And he reminds me to be in the now. It's like, look at the wren, look at the lizard, and it makes you look. And my advice to people is, when they go into nature, is if you see a bird on the branch, so precariously sitting there, think about your life, like document everything you see on your walk. Even if you're in a city, document things that jump out to you. But when you're in nature, if you see a bird on a branch or you hear a bird calling, write it down. And if you haven't got the luxury of time to sit there and just write your thoughts there, and then think of your life, think, right, what's precarious about my life? Am I balancing on a tightrope? What can I do? And ask the universe Do I have a problem? Surrender your problems, your issues to the universe, and just trust the answers are going to come to you, maybe while you're sleeping in your dreams. So keep a dream journal.
Yep.
Maybe it will come in the wind that day while you're walking, or maybe an inspiration while we're chatting
Yep.
will come and think, oh, I can do that.
100%.
It was
100%.
like, yeah, for a while I've been thinking about what I can do in my photos, and it's like I wanted to do a self-help book, but when I looked at your book recently about your pivotal life experiences, I thought, wow, this is how I'm going to help people. I'm going to make a workshop book and the photographs and put my own quotes, because now
Wonderful.
is the time
It's
for
absolutely
us
the
to
time.
speak from our heart.
Yes.
We don't, yes, it's great to listen to all these geniuses that have gone before us, all our ancestors, and to the living geniuses, people like Eckhart Tolle. We can listen to their quotes and just get inspired and feel it. Everything today is about feeling. We're entering a world of feeling. And I know through your work, you're going to help people to touch and feel their emotions. We're in a busy world, yes, but instead of being the high achievers and going from one thing to the next thing, just stop and embody that. And what does that feel like inside?
Yeah.
And earlier when we were chatting, you were telling me about your family. Just their precious gift is time. They want time with you. And last year I gave a Facebook message, or the year before, I had over 2,000 views very shortly. And it was about, instead of rushing to buy all your Christmas gifts, think about your family, your neighbors, elderly neighbors who are by themselves, neighbors who are lonely. There's so many people going through divorce and they're by themselves. There's so many people who are widowed. There's so many people. We're living in an expatriate community. We have so many different global nationalities. We're living in diversity, but we don't understand. Not everybody is excited about Christmas. Christmas is not for everyone. It's not part of their religion. And just, and every day to me is Christmas. Every day is a gift. So don't be kind just because of a certain celebration. Think, if you're living in a block of apartments, whose door can I knock on? If you're in a community, who's by themselves, just reach out to people and do something special. And for your own children, spend time with them. And if you live, across the world like we are, do like we're doing, have FaceTime with people and tell them you love them. Like, I was blessed to interview Eddie Jacku, who lived through the horrendous experience of going through the war with Germany and the Jews, and he rose above it and saw himself as the happiest man on earth. Yeah. And he lived till over 100, he's only recently passed. And his message was forgiveness, forgive everyone, and give gratitude. And it's what we're all saying. So I think if the more each of us spread the gratitude and the kindness, maybe we can start a kindness revolution. Yes. Be kind to yourself first, because as you mentioned earlier, and in your book, you have to keep some time to you as mothers. My mother gave so much to all her 6 kids. She didn't have anything left for herself. Yeah. We could have been millionaires. My father was earning loads of money, but he chose to go to the pub every night and spend his money in the pub and give it to the more than income than my mother was earning to the barmaids, So everything is about treat people as you want to be treated.
Right.
And You talked about empty nest with the kids leaving, you know, start now, start looking now. What's important for me? How can I fill myself? And start by filling yourself with love and do something you're passionate about.
Right. And I am so glad that we had this conversation because it's really in such a special time of the year where people will meet their families, will sit around, perhaps at some gatherings with friends. And, what's common sense is not always common practice, as my mentors, Brenda Bouchard, used to say to us all the time. And it's so true. We forget these precious moments that we have, and we're looking for this extra thing that we want to either do or buy or purchase, and this thing is in our hands and we already forgot about it. And yet the experiences of having amazing moments with people, of dear to us, this is what counts, because at the end of life no one will ask themselves, did I make enough phone calls, did I buy enough things? They just wish they had more times with people they love. Beverly, I am so, so, so grateful for this time. For anyone who may be thinking, this is great conversation for people who have nothing to do. Guess what? We are all very busy, and yet we need that realization of peace, and helping our busy minds to actually quiet down, because from that space we can achieve so much more. I will share with the viewers, those who may not know, that realization that, what, the achieving and constantly looking for the next mountain to climb, it's not going to be enough at the end. We need that constant revitalizing our body, re energizing our brain, our breath, and just so simple, right? So simple. So grateful for you. I will ask you after the show to just send me all the links to your social media and website and whatnot, so people can find you, because I'm sure that there was people who needed to hear it today. And again, a beautiful chain of synchronicities and coincidences made this happen and possible. And I truly believe this was a Christmas present for me and many viewers out there. I'm so grateful for you, wishing you all the best. And if you come on this side of the big pond, you have a place you can stay. You'll be my guest. And if I come to Australia, I'd love to see you. Australia is on my bucket list, so I'll be there soon as possible. I don't know when, but it will happen. So thank you so very, very
Thank
much.
you.
It was awesome. And like I said, best of luck with everything you do. Do you have any parting message for the viewers?
Yes, to remember to do one breath at a time. If you're stressing out, stop and take one conscious breath. And always look in a person's eye and see the goodness within them.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
very
you.
much. It was a pleasure talking to you. Ciao.